Good evening, everyone. My name is Kalia McFarlane, and my group members are Margaret Bowden and Anika Campbell. Today, we'll be presenting on the functions of human resource administration, looking specifically at recruitment, selection, and induction. At the beginning of this presentation, there is a brief introductory video of the different subtopics that myself and my group members will be presenting on, followed by a closer look at each function, that is recruitment, selection, induction, and an advertisement that is included and an action plan that tells us the measures that we will use to correct an issue that we found from our analysis. What is
Once a request to fill a vacancy is approved, line managers and HR kick into action to start the search for a suitable candidate. Meet Dave. Dave needs to recruit a new sales manager. He has absolutely no idea how the process works. He needs some help now. He thinks, I'll ask the owner from HR to teach me the process. The owner is happy to help Dave. Recruitment, she explains, is the process of locating and attracting a pool of highly suitable and motivated candidates to apply for a vacant position. Recruitment begins with identifying HR requirements and ends with the receipt of applications. Part of the organisation's recruitment strategy is its decision about where to look for applicants. Internal sources include posting on job boards, employee publications or the intranet. External sources include advertising in newspapers, online, radio or television, the use of employment agencies, social media or employer referrals. The owner explains that selection is the process of gathering information to determine which applicants have the best chance of performing well in the job. To make sure selection decisions are accurate and legal, all selection tools must be valid. This means they must all accurately predict future job performance. Developing selection criteria assists validity. Selection criteria are the key work-related factors used to make the decision to hire or not to hire an applicant. Common selection tools include application forms, resumes, interviews, testing, and assessment centres. Once a new employee has been selected, there is an immediate responsibility to orient and induct the recruit into the organisation and the job. The first few days following the commencement of a new employee are extremely important, both for the recruit and the organisation. Orientation acquaints an employee with the more general organisational matters and has two key objectives: to inform the employee of organisational policies, norms, values and benefits, and to make an employee aware of important locations, procedures and services which are available to them. Action is more concerned with introducing the new recruit to the job and to the work environment in which he or she will work. This is best conducted by the immediate supervisor and the new recruit's team members. Thanks to Fiona, Dave now feels confident that he has all the tools he needs to go ahead and recruit his new sales manager. Dave gains approval to begin the recruitment process. He conducts a job analysis to identify the tasks, duties and responsibilities of the job and the knowledge, skills and ability a person needs. He uses this information to update the job description and develop selection criteria on which he will base the decision to hire a new sales manager. Dave refers to his organisational recruitment policy to help him make a decision about where to look for highly qualified and motivated candidates. He places an ad on the organisational intranet and also externally on Seek.com and the Sales Monthly magazine. Dave uses the selection criteria to help him develop a selection process, including review of resume and application forms, telephone interview followed by a behavioural interview, an assessment centre, and reference checks. The end result? Kelvin is appointed as Dale's new sales manager. On Kelvin's first day at work, he attends an orientation session with senior management to be informed of the organisational policies and norms, values and benefits, and to learn about the important locations, procedures and services available to him. The second part of the process, induction to the department and team, was the responsibility of Dave as the new employees manager. Induction to the department or team included assigning a workspace, introduction to colleagues, a familiarisation of the work layout, fire escapes, location of toilets, change rooms, lunch rooms, and other physical amenities and parking. Information about the hours of work, breaks, timekeeping, recording procedures and reporting lines, health and safety and welfare requirements, emergency procedures, and security systems. Kelvin was introduced and welcomed by his new team members and assigned a mentor who is respected by both Dave and the team to act as a guide and tutor for Kelvin. Welcome, Kelvin, and congratulations, Dave.
Now let us go into recruitment. What is recruitment? Recruitment can be defined as the process where potential applicants are searched for and then encouraged to apply for an actual or anticipated vacancy in an organization. There are some specific tasks that are involved in the process of recruitment. Let's look at these. The tasks that are involved are identifying the job vacancy. As you know, before you can advertise for a job, before you can ever think of putting out an advert out there, you have to know why you are advertising. So you identify the job vacancy, maybe it's because somebody have retired or somebody got fired, or maybe the company is expanding. Secondly, we analyze the job requirements, and we do this by conducting something we call a job analysis. And a job analysis is an in-depth systematic study of a job to gather and analyze information about the content and the requirements of the job and the context in which the job is performed. So it involves collecting information on the characteristics of the job that differentiate it from other jobs. So the primary purpose is to get a clear understanding of what is done on a job and what capabilities are needed to do a job as it has been designed. The next task is to prepare recruitment documentation. And for this one, we're talking about use our job analysis to get a clear understanding of what the job is about. Now we're gonna prepare the description of the job and the specification. And the job description is simply a written narrative that describes the general task or other related duties and responsibilities of the position that we're advertising. So it describes reporting relationships, what is to be done and where necessary. The location of the work can be included as well. And the job specification, that lists the human requirements necessary to perform the responsibilities of a job satisfactorily. So it lists out the qualifications. If you need a bachelor's, if the person is required to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, their experience, training, their skills, their emotional attributes, their mental capabilities of that individual that can be informed in the job specification. The next task is actually now advertising the vacancy, and this can be done internally or externally. So recruitment activities are typically performed by the human resource practitioner or manager. And as I said, we advertise it either internally, if we have personnel in the organization who have the required skills that can probably move into that position, then we can advertise internally, or we can advertise externally. And external recruitment sources are recruitment through advertisement, or campus recruitment, or recruitment by employee exchanges, recruitment by third parties, via the internet recruitment, or unsolicited applicants. And then we actually put the advert out there and we attract the candidates to apply for the job. So these are the specific tasks that are involved in the recruitment process. All right, so on screen, we have a find vacancy advert for a teacher. And before we can prepare a job vacancy, there must be a reason as to why we need to hire someone. And these can vary from someone retiring, as I said before, someone who has resigned, someone got fired, the business is expanding, or changing the way the work is delegated in the company or the institution. So all of these would inform the task of preparing the job advert. But there are specific requirements that we would like to see on a job advert. And if we can look at this job advert, we can locate the job description and the job specification. And the job specification will take into consideration the person's qualifications, like the Master of Philosophy in Biology or equivalent qualification. A PhD in biology is preferred. Those are job specifications. And the description now tells what the person will be able to do when they are working. Like, for example, down here tells you the preference will be given to the individuals with requisite knowledge, skills, and contemporary competency to teach, etc. So this section tells you of the job description. Here tells you of the job specification. Included also, we want to tell the persons how they are to apply, by when they are to apply. So we will include the time, the date, the final date for application, and how they are to send their credentials to us, their resume and their cover letter to us. They send it to an email or so. And of course, included on the advert as well would be the name of the institution and the address and those specific information. We want to point out that for the job description, it has three parts: the title, the general summary, and the essential function. So the title of the job description, it should be descriptive of the job function to be performed, okay? And then the general summary now, that is a concise statement of the general responsibilities and components that make the job different from others. All right. So in recruitment, communication of vacancy is done through various sources such as the internet, newspaper, magazines, etc., and distributes forms easily so candidates can apply if we require them to apply via the forms. So again, the consideration, the job description needed to be on there, the requirements, the company description and benefits, application procedures and deadline, and contact and submission details are all necessary considerations for a job advert. All right, so upon analysis, the school that I had analyzed was the University of Technology, Jamaica. And one issue that came forefront was the institution's inadequacy to widely advertise the vacancy. So for the recruitment process to be effective, the needs of the organization need to be matched with the needs of the applicant. All right. So whilst the institution would have the identity, would identify the job vacancy, analyze the requirements, prepare the recruitment documentation, the University of Technology, Jamaica, it lacked the ability, or it didn't advertise the post wisely. So most times you'll find the UTech, University of Technology, Jamaica, job adverts by searching on their alumni blog. And maybe sometimes you'll find it in the newspaper. And I believe that they can improve in this regard. So, for example, I am teaching with the UTech, the University of Technology, Jamaica. And when vacancy would become available, there is not much advertisement out there in the newspaper, via social media, or otherwise for persons or other applicants to know and can apply. Most times persons, like for me, for example, I hear from word of mouth when even I was actively searching for a teaching position in my profession. So I do believe that university can indeed improve in this regard, widely advertising when a vacancy position comes up. Now I will move over to my next presenter to present on selection.
Okay, so the advertisement has been done, the job analysis, the job description, and all the documents informing the advert has been done. The advert has been placed. What's the next step? The next step in the process is to select, to choose the best fit candidate from among the applicants that would have responded to the advert. One way we do this is by shortlisting, because we'd have gotten tons of responses, hopefully. So we need to go through and shortlist and narrow down the applicant pool so that we can get a more manageable set of applications to work with. All right, so after the shortlisting is done, then we can begin the selection process. One way to do this selection, let us first look at what is selection. According to DAFT 2020, selection is concerned with choosing individuals who meet the organization's criteria for a particular job. So it's really choosing the best fit candidate to fill the role as specified on the advert. All right. So how do we do this selection? We may do so by interviews. Interviews is one way to look at the shortlisted applicants that we would have had. We have interviews by telephone and face-to-face, which is the most popular one. And of course, now that we're in the digital age, and especially in light of the pandemic, the online interviews are becoming even more popular these days. So whether it's by telephone, which is usually done at the pre-selection stage. That's when telephone interviews are mostly done. So when we have done the selection and decided on using these candidates, then they'll be invited to a face-to-face interview or online. So what are the different types of interviews? We have a structured interview and the unstructured interview. The structured interviews entail or include a standard set of questions which provide the interviewing panel with a uniform method of assessing all the candidates in the same way. All right. Another structured type of interview is the evaluation interviews using the STAR method. What does the STAR acronym stand for? Situation, task, action, and result. So the situation means we do have the candidate describe a situation that they would be in and what steps they would take to resolve such. A task would be where a specific goal was given to the candidate to accomplish what steps would be taken. That's the task. And sometimes it's called a performance task as well. The action would include to have the candidate describe in detail what action had been taken in a particular situation, how they would resolve a particular scenario. And the result, the R in STAR, speaks to how have the candidate describing what was the outcome of the actions that would have been taken previously and what the candidate would have learned based upon the outcome. All right, so those are the structured interviews. Not yet, we are looking also at the unstructured interviews, which seem to be less effective in selecting ideal candidates, especially for a particular post. So the unstructured interview is usually done by a panel or a group of the candidates' peers to really test and gain insight on the candidate's personality, behavior, and ability to work in teams and such the likes. So it's not really as effective as the structured interviews would be. All right. So in addition to interviews, assessments may also be done to help in the selection process. It is used in addition to interviews, and some are done together or some just done by themselves, assessments. You might be given a GMA, a general mental ability test. That is usually to test IQ. We may be given the 5-factor model personality test, which speaks to more EQ. Remember, we are living in this digital age, and emotional intelligence is equally as important as IQ, right? So that 5-factor personality model will test the candidate's personality, how they work in teams, how they resolve certain situations. All right, and that's the 5-factor model. Other tests would be like a work sample test, where a performance task may be given. Work sample, as the term suggests, a task to test your job knowledge and your skill. So like for a lecturer position, the candidate might be asked to simulate delivering a lecture or a tutorial on a particular topic on the subject area. So that is what the work sample test would be like. And that is usually very effective, depending on the type of job. All right. So after we have done the interviews, the assessments, there are some final steps in the selection process. And these steps include going back to the applications of the shortlisted applicants, looking at their references and doing background checks and getting the referees to submit references. Then a decision would have been taken after we have done all of that. And we will, based on the decision that has been made, the successful applicant would have been offered a contract, would have been given the offer and offered the contract. All right. At this STEAM college, the college that I studied, the institution under study here, they had a very effective selection process, as it really tied in with Webb and Norton 2013, who exposed that for this process to be effective, it has to be carefully planned, and the interviews and assessments have to be conducted to ensure that the institution gets the best candidates to fit the role as required. All right, so there was not a problem at that STEAM college that I studied, because a combination of the interview and assessment was used, and the candidates were given performance tasks based upon the nature of the job there. They would be asked to deliver a lecture or a tutorial or even a lab session on a particular topic. And the institution really did adhere to the testing and scoring guidelines as exposed by Webb and Norton to ensure validity and reliability, and that all candidates were tested fairly. So there was no issue of compliance there at the STEAM college. So now that we have done our selection, what's next? We have to introduce, welcome the candidates to the institution. And that particular induction and orientation part of the process will be discussed by my colleague, Anike.
Right, indeed, that is the next step that we have. So we have recruit, followed all our considerations when we are advertising, and we are finally selected. Now it is time for us to take our new employees and do our introduction session. But what is introduction? Okay, introduction is the process whereby organizations engage new employees in becoming accustomed to the work climate. Now, who is in charge of this process? HR is in charge of putting together these activities so that these new employees can feel welcome and supported in their new roles. All right, but what is the purpose of induction? Could we have skipped it? All right, let's look at some important. So we have our introduction. This is where we get them involved now in meetings. We call them in for a new teachers meeting. Say we're dealing with teachers. We call them in for a new teachers meeting. They greet each other. They introduce themselves, get familiarized with the workplace, and they get a tour. Now, the inclusion now is where we make them feel welcome in the organization. Perhaps you can show them your decks, give them a team building exercise, and then we move into our vision and mission statement, where we give them the vision and mission statement, let them know where we're coming from, and they get to assess themselves and say, does my goal match this organization's goal? And if we are dealing with a school, you can do the school song if necessary. Then we look at the rules and regulations. Now we have two types of rules for most organizations, most categories of working. So for teachers, we know that we have the internal rules, that's the rules of the organization, be at work by 7:30. But then we know that we have the external rules, which is the dress code set by the ministry. No crop pants, the skirt must not be above the knee, right? Then we have our job description. This is where we let them know what the roles are, what their roles will be, what are their responsibilities. You're a subject teacher, you are supposed to submit a bi-weekly lesson plan with all your sessions by this and this time. What will happen if that does not happen? If there are abbreviations in your documents, this is where you clarify your abbreviations, especially if you're going to use them moving forward. All right, then we have our role training. There's 2 types of training given. So we have our onboard training. This is where it happens in the induction session before they begin their work process. So maybe if school begins September 9th, from September 1st, new teachers would be doing their onboard training before interacting with the student. Then we have on-the-job training, where they're learning as they go along and they have a guide. So it's not just them. They perhaps do have assigned them a mentor or such. Then we have our feedback. Feedback is critical, where the new teachers now will say, the session went this way, I feel this way. They reflect, and you use that now to either improve or take out something out of your session. This was not necessary, or this needs to be necessary. This needs more support. All right. But what was induction like at my institution? All right, so I'm a new teacher, so I'm quite familiar with the process as I've just been through it. We started with our orientation, which is the same thing as our introduction. We toured the school campus, we found out where the lunchroom was and stuff like that. If I can be honest, I still felt a little bit lost, but as I went along, I got it. You know, one tour might not be enough, but importantly, it was done and I knew where the main buildings were. Then we have our administration. This is where I went and I put in my data, I did my ID, I gave in my documents. And for us, when we sign in the morning, we have to put our finger on a scanner. So that is when we did the administration. And the next day now, so these were all done in different sessions. This was not just done together to feel compact. Then the next session now, we had our mentor. This is where we have 3 mentors, and we're assigned a mentor. You go and you move along, and if you have any questions, you go to that person. But at the same time, for the mentor, there were limits to the type of question that the mentor could answer for you. All right, then we have our accountability. As I mentioned, the roles and responsibilities, this would kind of tie into our accountability session, right? So while the roles were given to us and responsibilities, the accountability spoke to what would happen if you did not fulfill your roles and responsibility. As a subject teacher, if you went to class without your lesson plan, what would be the consequence of that? And it spoke about, why do we need lesson plans? Why do we need to mark our form register? Why do we need to mark our subject register? Even though they have a form teacher that marks you are present for the day, then why do subject teachers need to do that? So we spoke about that in the meeting. While a student might be present at school, he might not come to your class. This is how we pinpoint certain things. So we spoke about that. All right, let's look at the issues. All right, issues that could be addressed, issues that should have been addressed in this session that was not, is the inadequacy for on-the-job training for new form teachers, right? So new form teachers, well, all form teachers have a form register, which is different from your subject register, where you have to take the morning and afternoon sessions. So that means that one person would be present for both days. As in one person would be present twice for one day. As a new teacher, that was not told to us, so we were not sure. But that's some basic information that we could have found out. The real issue in this was when we had to calculate now the balance for the persons present and absent for the month, then we had to now bring it forward. There was an abbreviation called BF that was not clear to us. So it's called brought forward. So you now have to take last month's attendance, bring it forward into this month, calculate this month's attendance, put it in a separate category, and then add them together to bring them forward for the next month. That was not communicated to us as new teachers. We were confused, and a few of us messed up the register, so we had to purchase it back, because the school gives you one register, but then you have to purchase another one if you mess it up. And this is a pretty costly register. Right, and then it came on to the monthly reports that form teachers must produce. No outline was given to us about the report, right? When the issue was supposed to be addressed in a meeting, because we have our mentors and they're supposed to guide us, it was told to us that that is outside of our mentor's limit. That was a supervisor, grade supervisor was supposed to inform us of that. And then the grade supervisor told us that the mentor was in charge of that. So there was some miscommunication, and I believe that is what started the issue. No one was clear on whose responsibility it would have been. All right. So now looking at our action plan to address this very same issue. All right, let us look at the action plan that we've made for this issue. Our target is to improve the new teachers introduction program. Our objective is to maximize the training sessions for new teachers becoming form teachers. All right, so our task is to improve the on-the-job training, which is to assign new teachers as assistant form teachers instead of new teachers. So they would work instead of form teachers. So they would work alongside a form teacher that is more experienced and learn from them before going in and becoming a form teacher on their own. So the indicator for this issue was the inability to fill out the register correctly. Right, as I mentioned, a lot of us had to buy new registers, so that would be an indicator for us. So the time frame would have been 1 academic year, and the specific activities which match the measure of success would be to attend registration periods for the morning sessions, and then after marking the morning session registration on a temporary register, so that we don't have to have a repeat of buying over the register, it would then be checked by the experienced teacher to say if this was okay. Right? This would be for an entire term, right? And the measure of success is if it was accurately completed. All right, next. And next specific activity now would be new teachers will conduct a student profile. This is to gather the information, the bio, the demographics of the students before putting it in the register. That is something that can be messed up as well in the register. All right. So a measure of success for this now is to accurately update students' file. This would be in the actual register. All right. Our next specific activity would now be to complete the register entirely using our activities from activity 1. So that would be the morning session. Now they will be filling out the afternoon and the morning session now, and this would be by term 3 by themselves in the actual register. Right? They would be filling out the students' data in the actual register by themselves. Right? Now, provided that they can do this accurately, then we can say, yes, you are ready to become a form teacher by yourself by the end of the academic year. What are some resources that we will need? We will need human resources, such as an experienced teacher to be paired with the new teacher. So, of course, the new teacher is also listed. We will need materials such as daily logs for attendance, the temporary register, students' file. This would be when they conduct the student profile, stationaries, and then we have our financial resources, which would have covered each of these, which would have covered the material, and we rounded to 8,000 per term, and so 3 times 8 would have given us 24, and we put a number that is easier to recognize, or 25. All right. Now, in concluding, wrapping up everything now. All right. In concluding, the recruitment, selection, and induction process are integral to an institution human resource management and development, from attracting to choosing and keeping the right person for the right job. And so it is important for us to follow our considerations in creating our ads and identifying our solutions in order to create adequate action plans to eliminate our issues in this process. And our references were and we thank you for watching our presentation. We hope that you've learned something.